From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Sufficiency and Wellbeing Experience. We are an independent media organization, which means a lot of our revenue is actually generated through people's support and your support. We are committed to building our independent capacity to cover urgent and pressing issues across the globe that concern living well with sufficient means and to imagine global citizen led pathways towards liberation at a time of global far right authoritarianism, fear, and ecological uncertainty, and of course, colonization. Please do share and like, share, subscribe to each our episodes and share it with your comrades. So, back to the content for today. So, the international law is quite clear. In its 26 January 2024 provisional order, the International Court of Justice, or the ICJ, in the South Africa versus Israel case, the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, held that Israel's actions in Gaza fall within the scope of the Genocide Convention and ordered Israel to take all measures to prevent and punish direct and public incitement to genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Furthermore, in her UN report, Gaza Genocide, a Collective Crime, dated 20th October 2025, Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, argued that the ongoing genocide in Gaza is sustained by the complicity of influential third states that continue to enable Israel's long standing violations of the international law. The report identifies India among 25 other states that continued military and diplomatic relations with Israel, despite international legal obligations to refrain from providing support that may facilitate the violation of Palestinian people's right to self determination. What is happening in Gaza cannot be understood as an isolated event. Palestinians have long described their experience as an ongoing Nakba, an Arabic word to describe catastrophe, which is a settler colonial project aimed at dismantling Palestinian collective existence through displacement, killing, and systematic destruction of the conditions necessary for life, such as food, water, farmlands, housing, name it. Against this background, we are delighted to welcome two very influential social media activists for Palestinian liberation in India, Shrishti Khana and Prashant Pundir. Both have been outspoken advocates for Palestinian self determination, speaking out against the genocide in Gaza, despite growing attempts to suppress pro-Palestine dissent in India. Shrishti's Instagram account, followed by more than 100,000 people, was recently suspended after her sustained criticism of Israel and the Indian government's complicity. Today, we will explore the links between colonial capitalism, India Israel relations, Zionism, Hindutva politics, and the growing culture of surveillance, censorship, and repression directed at critical voices in India, and of course, many other across the liberal nation states across the globe. We are honored to have Shrishti and Prashant with us for this very important conversation. Myself, Dr. Nairita Roy Chaudhuri, and I also run my personal YouTube channel called Planet Corner. My questions for you, Shrishti, I have quite a few questions, but before we jump into our recent and unfortunate experience with the suspension of your Instagram account, could you tell us, or could you rather tell the global audience a bit about your background and what led you to become involved in activism more generally? And also why activism for Palestinian liberation?
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for having us. First off, I really appreciate the work you guys are doing and everything that you all stand for. My background is that I come from the mental health field in India. So I've spent time working in psychiatric wards. I am certified in client centered therapy and I'm an educator. I work with kids. Um, And what led me to become involved in activism, though I don't really believe I'm doing anything as such, or it's anything grand, or because I mean it's easy to make videos, it's easy to talk, and it just sucks that it has to come at a cost as compared to what a lot of our Palestinian friends and kin are going through in Gaza and Palestine. So I
Yeah.
don't really feel like it's anything as such. But what led me to do this was I really don't know. I think I was not very political until it just so happens that I was working with kids, and it was the kids and my experiences with the women in psychiatric wards that I worked in. And it was a government psychiatric facility, which have a very, very bad reputation in India because they're known for abuse and malpractice and other things, among other things. I mean, so it was that. And then when I started connecting with people in Palestine and Gaza specifically, I saw similarities. Like I started seeing my own kids that I was teaching. And then on the flip side, to compare that to the kids who were being blown up in Gaza by Israel
Yeah.
and also by proxy America and all the states that are complicit.
Mhm.
And similarly for the women that I was talking to, they a lot of them were single mothers because they had lost their husbands were killed rather by, again, I don't like to refer to Israel as Israel, I prefer to call it the Zionist entity. So their husbands were killed and they were trying their best, and then I noticed that the women and children are carrying a lot of the genocide on their backs, and I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes that is not given enough attention at times. And it was really just that it was just very natural, and just felt like something we should be doing. And that was that.
And Prashant, what about you? Like, what brings you to the space?
I think in terms of Palestinian liberation, I do see a lot of struggles of oppression across the world, like as one liberation movement. Like there's a lot of struggle that we're going through in India as well in terms of
Mhm.
oppression by the state, and like the involvement of Israel as well. I feel like as Indians, what particularly draws me to the Palestinian cause is people don't understand how deeply embedded India is and complicit India is in terms of the genocide, in terms of the arms trade deals with Israel and making drones that are used to bomb Gazans. So I think it's more of a responsibility as an Indian for us to speak out against the genocide.
And from like, I'm asking this for the global audience. Like, do you see the arms trade deal between India and Israel as a recent trend, or has that been historically?
I mean, in 19 around the time when Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister, I think the official diplomatic relations with Israel were being
Mm.
found. But it has definitely escalated ever since Narendra Modi became the president. We've not had
Prime
any,
Minister.
sorry, any prime minister who's like so openly pro-Israel.
Yeah.
And the deep affiliation of, I feel like the foundational basis of people see a lot of the strategic partnership, but I feel the foundational basis of it is the shared affinity between Zionism and Hindutva, both
Mm.
ideologies that sort of function or cannot function without the othering of any other community, which is a shared common enemy here, Muslims. So I feel, yeah, that's the case.
If I may
And
interject,
yeah,
can you
yeah.
perhaps unpack briefly what the Hindutva ideology or term means for the global audience?
I think that's an ideology that the BJP, the ruling party, identifies itself with. They have very similar objectives as Zionism, such as a Hindu nation, which is just for people who identify with Hinduism, are born Hindus, and
It's a majoritarian ideology, basically. And
Yeah.
the foundation of Hindutva, literally, the founders of Hindutva were inspired by the Zionist movement back in
Mm.
1920s. So it is literally
Mm.
connected that way. And the common enemy here is the same. Um, they want a homeland for Jews here. These people want homeland for Hindus only. So any other community that comes in the way is basically um, going to be either killed or displaced, which is what the government here also tries to do in many ways. And also, like these systems of oppression, I would
Mm.
say India is learning in a lot of ways from Israel as well. How the state governments are learning, how our intelligences are learning. So um, it's very deeply connected.
Yeah, like if you notice, we also have bulldozer demolitions here in India, major
Mm.
towards Indian
Muslims.
Muslims and
Mhm.
their houses, their shops, even mosques, which is their religious places. And similarly, we see Israel's doing in Palestine. And not just that, but India has successfully created a Muslim apartheid, and it will
Mhm.
Yeah.
head towards a genocide. Many MLAs and ministers have openly have had genocidal intent, and I mean that's
Mhm.
one of the factors
And
that,
they're being very open about it.
yeah.
Mm.
And also, like they found reports where Indian officials have literally visited Israel to study these systems of oppression and how to replicate them in India. Like similarly, it has happened like Israel used tear gas and everything against Palestinians, and similarly in the farmers' protest, the same systems were replicated by India and the Indian police, where the much famous farmers' protest movement was going on. So
Mm.
literally, the systems are being carried over. First, they're tried on to Palestinians, and then they move across the world.
Yeah, this was specifically the technology of using drones to put tear gas. So shortly before the protests, I think 2 to 3 years before, the reports are out there, Indian authorities had visited Israel and they learned from that, and then they implemented that here.
One thing, like, because even I'm living in India, and I can relate to this, of course, but for the global audience, is that they might be wondering, like, for a country like India with a history of struggling against the British colonialism, how can a country like India support Zionism and support a genocidal state that is actually clamping down on that is killing people's right for self-determination. Like, what do you think went wrong in our nation building project, or like whatever it is?
I think a lot of it has to do with the current regime, I would say, BJP, because the BJP comes out from the RSS, which is the
Mm.
so-called largest NGO in the world, according to Mr. Narendra Modi, but it's not even registered in India. Nobody knows how it functions, who funds the RSS. So these are questions that have been there out there floating. But particularly if you see the origins of RSS or the leaders of RSS, founders of RSS, they did not contribute in the Indian struggle in the freedom movement of India as well against the British. They were the very people who were actually opposing and bootlegging the Britishers back then.
Collaborators.
And these are the same people now who are basically collaborating with Israel and the USA. So literally, it's, these are the same people. It's just that generations have carried over. BJP is a political entity of the RSS, and the RSS is known to have bootlegged literally the Britishers and have
Mm.
had no contribution in the Indian freedom struggle. So that plays a huge role, I guess.
Yeah, and I think initially when we got freedom from the British colonizers, it was important to India as a state to lead the decolonial space. But then it very quickly shifted, where from 1947 to I think 1950, we had acknowledged the creation of Israel and
Mhm.
as a legitimate state, etc. And then very soon after, we lost all decolonial roots that we might have had, and we recognized them, and backdoor policies were already underway. Hostile Homelands is a very good book for that, where
Mm.
Azad goes deeper into India-Israel relations, especially historically. So, backdoor policy was established much earlier than it was made official. So, I do believe that before we could really do anything about our anti-colonial roots, we had already sort of lost them. Whether it was to become like this global capital and to capitalize, to become more of a capitalist economy and industrialize ourselves, I think that played a big role in it. And in general, we've had a sort of colonial hangover where we see a lot of Israelis coming to India, but they are
Yeah.
treated so well despite of them being so entitled, so rude, because I mean they are white people, they look like white people, and so we as Indian people have a tendency to feel inferior, and that we've noticed with how locals behave, and I've written on it, and I do plan on writing more on it, how locals behave towards them, and they are known to be very awful to the locals. So that's sort of just one example of us still sort of being in a colonial hangover.
And people also like talk a lot about how India was always pro-Palestine. India shared deep relations with Palestine and all of that. But I feel if you start digging more, you also realize how deeply involved India and Israel have been over the years. In the Indo-Chinese War, in wars against Pakistan, arms and
Yeah.
ammunition were provided by Israel, and that goes back to 1960s. I'm talking about. So the
Yeah.
relations were always there. They just did not come up front because the government back then, Nehru and the Congress government, did not want to establish that publicly. But the relations
Mhm.
were always there until in 1990 they were formally recognized.
Yeah, and India being pro-Palestine is a myth. So whenever people mention that, they'll show you that stamp with the Indian
Mhm,
flag and the Palestinian flag.
mhm.
Whereas the truth was that we had already betrayed our anti-colonial rules. We were not standing by Palestine. Palestine had been through a Nakba. We didn't care,
Exactly.
and so I really don't buy that we were ever pro-Palestine. Really.
So,
Regarding the connection with Israel, if I may, this is very interesting what you are saying, and I'm curious if you are both familiar with this. It's called the lobby theory, which basically says that the Zionist lobby in the U.S. has amassed so much financial power that holds the American politics in a tight grip. That's the lobby theory. And I recently read in a book by Andreas Malm, it's called The Destruction of Palestine is the Destruction of the Earth. So he
yeah.
advocates against the labor theory, and he pretty much says that it's the opposite, that Israel is used by America as a proxy in the Middle East to advance their own interests, right?
Right. Right.
So how do you feel about this, and how's the perception in India about this, the lobby theory?
I think it is similar to, I believe that Israel has a foothold here for their own gains and for their own
Hmm.
profits. A lot of the bilateral deals that were made uh, also showcase that Modi's visited Israel. There've also been Manipuris who have been
Migrating to Israel.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
claiming that they are
Al-
a long lost Jewish tribe and
yeah.
all of that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
so I believe it's for Israel's own gains. Whereas in India, the reason I think Israel has such a good perception is because the BJP majority and all of its supporters believe that. I mean, there's this whole concept in India where either like you are nationalistic, so you will not
Hmm.
criticize the ruling party, or you're an
Mhm.
anti-national if you're
Right.
Mhm.
criticizing about it. And we've been labeled anti-national, or we are being labeled
Hmm.
anti-national all the time, and they do that to everybody who's trying to speak against the current government or criticize them, or say that, you know what, data centers are not fine, anything. So
Hmm.
they'll call you an anti-national. So I believe a lot of the BJP supporters and the BJP majority, they think that it's nationalistic to support Israel because Israel has helped us with arms, and these Israeli tourists coming here are just tourists and they're furthering our economy, but they're also war criminals. They're genocidal war criminals who have killed babies and people in Palestine. So
And the reference
that's
that I gave earlier about Israel helping us out in wars is also repeatedly mentioned by these people. That look, what would have happened if Israel had not helped us back then? So it is by default that we need to support Israel. And I think there's this
Right.
obsession almost that's created around Israel, particularly in India right now. That's almost scary to the point that people may even listen to some criticism against the BJP, but they
Hmm.
they don't want to listen to any criticism against Netanyahu or Israel. They literally worship
Mhm.
it.
And I think
Exactly.
in a recent Al Jazeera report, they found that US being number one, but then India
Hmm.
was the second party that funded the Israel genocide the most in terms of funding and arms and ammunitions, etc. And that does go to show how close the relations are, and most of Indians do support it. It's a very small minority who don't
Hmm.
support it, and then it becomes an even smaller minority who are uh, publicly vocally speaking out against it. So it's much easier to target the people who are speaking out because it becomes very few people.
Yeah, speaking
Yeah.
of resistance against the status quo, if I may, and then I'll pass it back to you, Narita, about the cockroach Janta Party,
Mhm.
which since I found about it, it's such an interesting story. Maybe if you can tell us what it is and What's the background for its creation and its motivation and aspirations?
So CJP started in response to a comment that was made by the Chief Justice of India, and he said that normal people, all citizens and youngsters are cockroaches because they engage in activism and they are unemployed and they are lazy, and basically painting activism in a very bad light and RTI activists. And then he later tried to save his ass, but it didn't really work. So then, in relation to that, already CJP had formed. It was just a satirical meme party
Yeah, it
sort of
was
a
just like
thing.
a very movementist sort of politics that CJP indulges in. It's a particular issue that they're talking about, which is the resignation of the
Mm.
minister. After there's been a lot of suicides of students after the NEET paper was leaked in India, which is a
Medical exam.
medical exam, these things have continued to happen under this education minister for 2 3 years 4 years now. So I think all this anger built up within the youth is sort of coming together, and that's pretty much it. But I don't think they're particularly looking to challenge the system in any way. They want to work within the system, within the bounds of the constitution and what the state allows basically.
Like I think they've been able to do protest and they're bringing up important issues about the education system. At the
Mm.
same time, we've noticed how their protests have been allowed to happen, whereas other protests are either not allowed, and if they are allowed, all the activists and people who are attending are horribly abused. Like we ourselves have activist friends in Delhi, which is the capital of India,
Mm.
and they were sexually assaulted by the police. They were abused by the police for not even protesting, but sort of they were student activists and they were doing some work, and in relation to something they picked up all of these activists, and all of that information is out there. PUCL is People's Union for Civil Liberties in India. They've put out more information about
Which are
this.
documented.
They've documented everything, yes, and there are recordings on YouTube as well. So we've seen how this happens. Like if you go physically to protest, you are lathi charge, there are water cannons that are used, whereas the CJP is trying to work within the system where they have literally offered flowers to the police, and the police
And
are
this
not
is
good
the same
people.
police basically that was sexually assaulting activists. So if for the same cause, for the resignation of education minister, people like us go and protest, we will be met with full force, is what I think
Yeah.
we're trying to say here. So
Yeah.
that's the difference basically. And protests are being completely trampled in India. Any kind of
Mm.
protest for any kind of issues. There is no space for dissent.
So
And
not
have you
just
ever
with
been concerned
yeah.
for your personal safety since you started all this activism?
Definitely, I think one video we made about the Israeli soldiers visiting in India, and we documented everything how they've been traveling around 70 to 80,000 of them in a year, and how they have this whole entire Hamas trail. It's called,
Mhm.
which goes from Goa to Himachal. These are states in India, and
So
a lot of
backpacking route
backpacking
basically.
route. And these people go there, they build their small colonies there. They build Israeli only cafe, Israeli only spaces where
Yeah.
Indians are not allowed in India.
Yeah.
And they misbehave with people, with locals. They don't pay them. I mean, it's a nuisance. Everybody knows how Israelis function.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, so we made a video on that and we were abused a lot. That was our first experience with the BJP goons or the mob, if you will.
entire internet mob, which is the BJP IT cell. And one more thing that's really important is how deeply Israel is embedded with this BJP IT cell.
Mm.
You will see a lot of accounts that have zero followers, zero following, nothing. They're just bots accounts. And they will say, I'm a Sanghi, I'm a Zionist. Sanghi is
Yeah.
like supporters of BJP, and I'm a Zionist. Like, how do you become a Sanghi Zionist? So these are all brainwashed people, and there's an entire army of them. If you speak anything against Israel, they will come after you. So they did come after us. They threatened us. They basically contacted
Doxed
our
us.
workplaces. They tried to intimidate our workplaces to fire us. We also lost our freelance jobs because of that. They doxed us all our personal info, everything from emails to phone numbers. I got a lot. I still get threat calls sometimes to not speak about Israel. So of course, like when all of that
People
happens on a
question
continuous
things.
basis, then you start feeling like I don't know if you can step out and feel safe. And we were also questioned, we were interrogated for making a video, which initially you're not ready to believe that it would happen. but it did happen,
And it
and we
was
were.
like the crime branch, no less, not just a
Mhm.
normal police. And they're meant to give you like a notice or call you,
Yeah,
but they just showed up at our house, which is
yeah,
also not that's not
7 to 8
following
of
due
them.
process. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And they just entered our house, and they took us to the station, and they questioned us for 4 hours. They asked
Yeah.
us where we were getting funding for making videos. We don't make any money
What the
from our
fuck?
Instagram. Exactly.
Mm.
They tried to put a lot of words
They
in our
want,
mouth.
yeah, they wanted
Yes.
to like sort of elicit some sort of response that would link us to some group or some journalist or
Mm.
something, but they could not find any link afterwards, and they
Yeah.
had to let us go. But afterwards, we got to know that it was, of course, from the pressure of the Israeli embassy, which is very strong in India and very strong in Mumbai, particularly, and we live in Mumbai. And we also know that we've been watched. This also may be watched by some of them. We know that we're on surveillance.
Yeah.
So
So like
yeah,
it becomes a point where sometimes you're having bad mental health days and you don't want to deal with it. So then you sort of choose not to talk about certain things, because you know if right now they start to target you or harass you, then you may not have the head space to deal with that. And so then there is the self censoring and the self policing and the vigilance and the fear. And a lot of other activists also have the same experience where almost everybody has been questioned by the police, and they've had doxing threats, and a lot also choose to not then speak publicly or put their faces out there, because of course we all have everything to lose: a job, a house, loved ones. And so like that's a very
I
fair.
mean, it is so bizarre at this point that we feel safer talking about issues in India that are local domestic than talking about Israel. The
Oh,
the loyalty that the state has and all its constitutional bodies have towards Israel is immense.
yeah, like they will think that either somebody's funding you, because they just can't believe that you may just care, and that's the only reason. So I told
Yeah.
the same cops who were questioning us that like there is no propaganda behind it. I have no reason, I just care. I also care about India. And then there's a very weird logic, then they'll ask you, then just talk about India, right? I'm like, I think we can do both. Why can't we do both? And that's a very messed up thing. Care about your own country first. I mean, like my country isn't funding the genocide. So
And we are caring about it. It's not that we don't speak about issues in India, but when it becomes a problem is when we speak about Israel particularly.
And two things
Mhm.
I wanted to mention. One was when Prashant mentioned those bot accounts that will target you, zero followers, zero following, no face on the account. Many people on X have also found that when you look at the details of those accounts, many are based in Israel because you can see the location. So that's how we know
Mm.
that there is an Israel connect there. I don't know. They are also a lot of these bot accounts. We have found there's something called the BJP IT cell in India, which is a sort of social media IT cell which is funded by the ruling party, the BJP, and people get 2 rupees, 2 rupees per tweet to tweet against you. So they are literally
People are
paid.
being paid to abuse you basically, and
Yeah.
even a lot of, in fact, the other way around as well. A lot of big Zionist accounts on X are being basically functioned in India from states like UP, Bihar, and
Yeah.
they have very big following in X.
Yeah, and the other thing was the Israeli embassy. We recently, in collaboration with another account, made a post about how Israel is flying Indian gay people to Israel for their Pride parade, because it's the whatever crap democracy of the Middle East.
Pink washing
So
the
yeah,
East
and
Side.
they're pink washing it, and we made a post about it in collaboration with somebody, and the Israeli
Consular.
embassy, yeah, the consular started commenting on it. Like they are so active, and they are like, oh, Palestine should be free from Hamas. They were talking like kids. And these are Israeli embassy
These
people.
are officials in Mumbai, is
Yeah.
Israeli consulars, and the point is like that's how badly they want to keep track of everything on social media. Who's talking about what in terms of Israel?
I remember reading one article long time back of many Indian migrants also being sent to Israel because they had,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
to replace the Palestinians. And in fact, I think last year I was traveling to this Nodia district in West Bengal, and in one of the villages, I was just generally having chai at a small, like the roadside chai place. And there, the tea seller, he was telling me that yeah, from this village, there's one man who went to Israel because apparently he heard from somewhere that there is a shortage of migrant labor. So now he's there, and now he's stuck in a war. And he had no, like, there was, I think in the crowd, among the crowd, there was one guy who sort of had a leftist ideology, and he was like, "Yeah, Israel is going to kill everybody, all the babies and everything." And then he was like, "I don't know how he got brainwashed," and there was this group discussion that happened automatically, and I was there. This happened last year, I think.
This is a part of official strategic alliance now. Modi, when
Hmm.
he went to Israel this year, he literally promised them 50,000 more workers who would migrate to Israel to replace Palestinian workers.
And for
And
cheap labor,
for cheap
really.
labor, 10,000 people went from UP itself last year. And they conduct interviews and all of that. They have an entire process to do that.
Yeah, and they're treated from some reports. Again, there are not proper pieces written on this as far as I'm aware of it, but they are also treated pretty badly over there. Some are stranded, sometimes given visa issues or money issues or any such
It's
issues.
generally how racist the Zionist entity is. That's
Yeah.
treated horribly there. A lot of people have come back and spoken up about it in India, but of course, those voices are not amplified.
I heard about workers from India migrating to the Middle East in general to work as cheap labor. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if Israel is doing it in a different way, something specific about Zionist racism
Hmm.
rather than Arab countries, that are also capitalist, but in a different way. Have you noticed any differences?
I think here it's also about I don't know, like what was that term that people use, like casualties in terms of the genocide they commit. So if they need people in in any of those spaces, let's say in Lebanon or in Gaza as well,
Hmm.
these are people that they use as human shields, literally, yeah, human shields. So a
Mhm.
lot of Indians are used as human shield in terms of the genocide. So I think that's the basic difference.
The Islamophobic ideology is being mobilized, right, to sort of, push certain migrants, Muslim fearing migrants to Israel. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, I do think I agree with that. I think a lot of the people who are recruited to go work in Israel are also usually Hindus, working class Hindus, and when the recruitment drives were happening and they were taking interviews, all of them were all too happy to go and serve Israel against Palestine, and for the nation of India, we'll do it, and against Palestine, we'll go and do it because we love Israel, sort of mentality. All of them believe that, really.
I mean, there are two aspects to it. I feel one is how
Ye-
terrible India's own
Unemployment.
unemployment scene is. So if there's
Mhm.
any opportunity to go to Israel or any
Yeah.
foreign country, these people end up believing it's heavens and we must go there. And the other is the brainwashing bit. If you open these Hindutvawadi groups on Facebook right now, also some random Hindu will be asking Netanyahu to let him in the Israeli army and that he will fight all Muslims in Gaza. So this is just brainwashing of another level, and they are so committed. They don't want to even join the Indian army. They want to go to join the Israeli army to fight Muslims.
That's also the thing with racial capitalism. Like, it is like even the Hindu migrant communities, they are being racialized and therefore, like, deported to work under other precarious conditions elsewhere in Israel. But then again, Islamophobia is also additionally immobilized, and
True,
it
true.
just helps this entire Hindutva Zionism project. And I also feel, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Is that this is also a sort of a concocted tactic to divide the working class, just so to break the solidarity against state power, against
Mm.
authoritarian power, to sort of create Hindu Muslim divides among the working class people who are already unemployed and systematically dispossessed. Do you agree with this narrative?
Yeah, yeah, I think 100%, because similarly I've noticed, and something I've found really really sad is all of the BJP supporters are themselves many huge chunk of them, I would say the majority of the supporters are working class people who do not have a job, who are struggling themselves, and the bulldozer demolitions used here sometimes also spills over to them. So
Mm,
even their shops, Hindu people, their shops are also bulldozed. They are also bearing the consequences of the state, but they are so brainwashed to not ask questions, to not speak against the ruling party, because then you'll become an anti-national and you have to be such a good, disciplined, obedient supporter, and they don't realize that their struggles are also the same with Indian Muslims, and also to see that Palestinians are also going through so much. So, and thereby dividing the working class whose struggle is the same, but then they're not asking the right questions.
Yeah, I mean, there's this quote that if you, it's easier to govern them if you divide them, and that's literally
Mhm.
what's happening. So I'm a Hindu, I'm not getting a job. You're a Muslim, you're also not getting a job. But if you don't create the divide, then people will get together and start organizing, ask you questions.
Right.
So that's why I feel like that's where they draw the line and divide people.
Yeah, Vlad, I think you were asking something.
My question was about class. And I'm interested how the class issue maps over the India's traditions of caste and whatnot, and from both my material perspective, but also from identity perspective, and link it to the design of capitalism. So let me put it as a question for you, both of you, since you were talking about the struggles of the middle class in India, which seems to transcend identity based on religion and ethnicity. I'm curious to see if the material conditions in India are being used to maintain a certain hegemonic structure of oppression, and how is that different from the Western type of top-down capitalist oppression? Is something specific to India that is happening?
Capitalism itself has weaponized class and caste a lot in India. So we are still seeing how the working class and the marginalized castes, such as Dalits and Adivasi people, which is tribal people, indigenous people, are still not given equal opportunities. There's still a lot of violence against them, whereas the middle class is still able to, has still able to is still able to get opportunities. I mean, and of course, the upper class and the elites are this one class that is just unbothered by everything, whether it is water scarcity or violence or whatever. They are just really unbothered, really, unless it's people like Adani or Ambani, which are just corporate or capitalists that are selling the country, basically. Um, and the middle class, again, can also be there's a lot of comfort within their politics as well, like how when the water scarcity issue reached cities where
It's
a
like
lot more.
what the petty bourgeoisie do. So caste and class, I feel like, are very intertwined in India. You
Mhm.
can't separate them at all. And from a historical POV as well, people who owned lands in India were always people from the upper caste, and that feudalism has sort of gone on even until now. So that's why a lot of people consider India a semi-feudal, semi-colonial country, not exactly a capitalist country. And that structure has gone on in the a lot of institutions, the major institutions of India, they're filled with upper caste people. So and whatever reservation there is, also they're constantly whining about it. That they want to take it away from that is from Muslims and from other marginalized communities, because they want to maintain that status quo and the hegemony of the upper caste India, which is the Savarnas, the Brahmins. So that's what I feel like it is about in India.
I'm unsure about the US equivalent, or if y'all can elaborate a bit more for me to understand.
So I'm talking from a Canadian perspective. I'm based in Canada and I'm originally from Romania. And here the inequalities based on class are materialistic in nature. So here the pyramid of oppression doesn't look at all at your identity or your personal identity, national ethnicity. It's all about productivity and where you sit in the hierarchy of wages. And Canada has been good at this integration, so to speak, of various nations that immigrate here. You are expected to adopt a certain set of values, so-called Canadian values.
From the Western model, I think it seems like the market neutrality, like and until unless you work efficiently and productively, you
Mhm.
are a good immigrant, or even the perfect immigrant, or the perfect citizen. And that is the Western model that gives you a facade of like, I think,
Mhm.
the identity, right? Is that what you're trying to say, Vlad? That kind
Yes,
of the
that's right. Yes.
I think in
and
India, it's class plays a big role in terms of let's say like there are so many sanitation workers in India, right? And they're all from the marginalized caste. You will not
Mhm.
find a Brahmin sanitation worker. So that's the difference. And even if like a Dalit person or from individuals from the oppressed communities rise up to a certain social or a class position within the government or within institutions as well, they will still be discriminated against. And
Mm.
which happens. We right now have a Dalit president in India, but the discrimination won't go away. So the class
Exactly.
injustice, the caste injustice that we have in India is like deeply related to class structures.
Yeah.
That is very yeah, interesting, but also not surprising, that because the thing is, if there is the entire thing with racial capitalism is, no matter how much you climb the ladder, and like the economic ladder, you earn money and stuff, but you will still not find the dignity that is not given because of your dehumanization that
Exactly.
happens through race. I mean, an African immigrant in Canada will probably have worse experience than you because of the color of the skin, you being white and me being uh, black. And then if the African immigrant is a black woman, then in Canada that's even worse. So there is an intersectionality of, and I
Yeah.
think over here it's the caste aspect.
Yeah. 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 I
D-
think we can't remove caste from class, like in India.
I think, Shrishti, you mentioned something interesting just to follow up is you mentioned the examples of Adani and Ambani's type of crony capitalism, and you, by calling them comprador capitalists. So, could you expand on that notion? Like, what is your understanding? Because I personally don't know, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I think what I was just meaning is seemingly, again, these middlemen almost who sort of hand over the country's resources and wealth to uh,
Colonial countries.
colonial countries. Like, for example, Meta or Google. I think Google has invested billions of dollars into data centers in India,
Mhm.
and that is displacing the indigenous people
Mm.
to do that. And Adani or Ambani, one of
I mean,
them.
all the resources and the land that is provided is in the name of Adani and Ambani. You
Yeah,
will not find anywhere, and especially in the Modi government, it's Adani. Everything goes to him. So
yeah,
that's what I think comprador capitalism is basically working for the colonizers by
Mm.
giving away the resources, the domestic resources of your own country in terms of land, in terms of human labor and everything.
and I mean they are billionaires, correct? And I see them as collaborators, really, to simplify it. Just the level of damage they are doing, and a lot of ecological collapse as well, right? I mean, India is a country that doesn't have water anyways, and they want to build more data centers, whereas the priority is not the fact that people are literally dying without water. We have horrible heat waves, and data centers, again, because they generate so much heat and then need to be cooled down, and that's a whole cycle. It's going to worsen all of the climate crisis we have. And Modi and his whole party also happens to be a
Mhm.
party of people who do not believe in a climate crisis. They don't believe global
He
warming is
doesn't understand it. Also, he doesn't know what's climate crisis. He says that it's not climate that has changed; it's we have who have changed. So that's
yeah.
that's the level of understanding that dude has. So
I mean,
Right.
this person did not acknowledge the heat wave crisis and just said, give your neighbors some water and be kind to each other if there's a heat wave. Right? That goes to show that an environment justice lens will be very tough in India, though that is exactly what we need.
and you must have seen how why Trump basically dropped the charges and the case against Adani. It is because
Mm.
Adani happened to then
Pay
pay and
more.
invest
Yeah.
in one of the companies that Trump owns in America.
Can you
So
talk about the case for the global audience who are not aware?
I am
So,
particularly not honestly very aware about the details of the case, but I knew that there was an ongoing case which the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, also mentioned quite a bit of times in India in the parliament. And we all know that Modi works for these capitalists and for these billionaires, Adani and Ambani particularly. And to drop the case, Adani went to the US, and there they had some sort of deal that he would invest these amount of $1 billion in one of Trump's
And
um,
create more jobs
and
for the
create more
US.
jobs for the US and provide more labor, cheap labor. And
mm.
that's how the case was dropped against him.
Yeah,
And
I think
even recently, the why Narendra Modi went to Where did he go? Where that whole episode happened with the press
S-
female journalist who asked him,
Sweden?
Sweden or Norway, I don't know, somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That there also there was a case against Adani, and after Modi went, that case was also dropped. And that's just very recent.
Yeah, and Adani had hired Trump's lawyer or something as well. And he got a pretty good deal as per whatever he has agreed to. That's a pretty good deal compared to what the consequences he would have had to
Right.
face.
Shrishti, could you like sort of, I'm trying to bring back this conversation to your Insta account being suspended. Could
Mm.
you like sort of, bring to light this incident to the global audience to sort of
Right.
for them to know what's happening in relation to dissent, and also the fact that how through this incident, would how do you understand the link between the big tech and capital and Hindutva Zionism?
Right. So, I mean, it's very interesting because my account does keep getting mass reported, which is one of the tactics to get your social media page to be taken down by a lot of the goons or whatever people who keep targeting us. And I also knew it was inevitable because it is happening in India a lot that Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts are being banned, especially of the political nature, where if you're speaking up against the government or talking about something they don't want you to talk about. So the latest IT amendment rules in India uh, just so have clauses where if the government doesn't like it, they think if it's anti-government, they can take down your content. And it's very vague. They don't even have to specify themselves or
So
elaborate.
the difference here is you don't have to be a journalist or an activist professionally or whatever. As long as you're a political commentator on the internet, even if you're just an ordinary person who happens to speak politically, which is a constitutional right, right? They can still
Yeah.
basically label you as a journalist who's basically anti-state or is
Okay.
anti-national. So people like us will be treated that way, and a lot of us have been treated that way.
Yeah, so given that that was already happening, I knew that it was inevitable. But I mean, again, you can never be prepared, and it was the nature of how it happened also, where I made a video on Aitan Gilboa. He's basically an
Yeah.
Israeli war criminal against whom the Hinduja Foundation filed a legal complaint in India. So I made a video on it, and I started getting my stories kept getting taken down basis copyright infringement, and those were my own stories. So, and copyright infringement, having talked to other activists and other people whose accounts have been taken down, we've been trying to make more connections and more join more solidarity groups in terms of digital rights also, because again they are also under threat in India. So a lot of those people have said copyright infringement is a tactic used against you because Meta takes that seriously. So it'll take down your content, it'll take down your account if there are enough copyright strikes against you. So my stories were taken down, and then I also wrote a reported piece on it with Azadasa. And soon after that, I think literally the night of that, my account was suspended. There was no notice that was given to me. I just woke up and people were texting, actually, did your
I
account
told you
go
in the
down?
morning.
Yeah, and Prashant told me, so I woke up because people were telling me, and then I saw that my account was gone, and they said that, yeah, that's it, like you violated the laws, whereas I didn't violate anything. And that's the pattern with everybody. Nobody violated anything. Their account is taken down, and the collaboration is of the state and of the monopoly social media platforms like Meta and
Yeah.
X. So yeah, that was a whole process of figuring that out. I was just about to file a civil lawsuit because Meta again is not known to respond, but surprisingly they did, and they said it was an error on our part, and we are sorry. That's all they said. But it can again be taken down at any
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah,
And,
and
and this applies to all Insta accounts or all social media accounts within the territorial bounds of India or elsewhere as well.
the IT amendment rules apply to
Indian
everybody in
citizens.
India. Yes, yes,
Mm.
Azad
anybody.
Issa's Instagram account has been banned in India also.
No, X account.
Sorry, X account.
Yeah, so his account was also taken down in India. And what was the other question? Yeah, with like the monopolies contributing
The big
to,
tech.
yeah, the big
Yeah,
tech
big tech.
contributing here. And I mean, Meta has also had to compliant Meta itself is known to silence Palestinian voices. Like, for example, suspension of accounts may be new to us, but it's been happening to Palestinians for forever. Like, we've seen through the genocide that their accounts are blocked, banned, they're constantly making new accounts. So like, to bring it back, like, it may still be sort of an inconvenience for us, but for them, they
Mm.
do depend on it for survival. Like, they put their fundraisers online, they reach out to people for support. So it is literally survival for them. And for other people who are also sort of earning a living here in India doing online work, activism, or other sort of content creation, their livelihood is also threatened.
Mhm.
And these companies collaborate with each other. Like, Meta's had so much investment over here, and Meta is also laying people off at such a big rate, and they're relying more on AI. And AI has
Their
been.
AI system flags any account randomly as something that violates its law, and they take down the account, and then they say, "Oh, it was our AI system." It happened with one of my friends as well. When you have to appeal it, then but then already like it takes a week or so, or more than that sometimes, for them to respond. Like for some human to literally sit and check if this account literally violated any law or not.
Yeah, and they usually don't respond really unless you take it legally, which not everybody
Mhm.
may have the tools, resources to do. It can get expensive. Any sort of legal process is very exhausting, time consuming. And anyways, your main platform that you have built is gone. And that
Mm.
space you've created, they take it away from you. Like, we were discussing how physical dissent in India is very tough. And but now so is also virtual dissent. Like, they're taking away your accounts, they're banning it. So you're constantly in fear. And other activists I know who are posting videos or doing other work online, even they are in fear that our account will be taken down. People are trying to make backup accounts, but it's harder to start from scratch again. And I mean, how many times will you start over? Eventually you also do get exhausted.
And these
Yeah.
platforms are also enablers of abuse. Like if you look at X, the more you abuse, the more reach you get. And then people do it for the payout. That's the entire Hindutva ecosystem. That's how it works there. They post the worst of shit just to get views. They will post about kids being starved in Gaza, and really modified pictures of kids and everything. And like really terrible stuff just to get views because they know they're gonna get the payout every 15 days. So this is literally enabling abuse.
Also, one last point was, again, this account suspension of mine was again related to Israel. Like, this
Mhm.
whole thing started when I posted the video, when I wrote the piece. So somebody was, and the thing about copyright reports against your account is that you have to make an active report. You have to go there, you have to fill a form, you have to say that, this person has violated copyright and the original content is somebody else's, and put the other link, which is the original content. So you know the deliberate active nature of
There's work to be
reporting.
done. It's not like on Instagram you just click and it's done. So somebody's
Yeah.
really basically sitting down and doing that work in like filing copyright claims against her account.
Yeah, and not all of them get accepted, of course, but when they do, if there are 3 to 4 strikes against you, your account gets taken down, which happened in my case. And again, relating to talking about Israel and an Israeli war criminal in India, and a lot of our abuse is also related to when we talk about India-Israel relations and Palestine similarly.
And in relation to the fear of the retaliation again on dissent that's happening, do you receive any solidarity from other activist groups or global network? Are you in touch with any global network as such?
Not global network. I don't think we've had that kind of support, to be honest. We, I mean, lost our own friends after speaking out because I don't know, for some weird reason, I feel like once you're sort of in the States, I people don't want to associate with you. That's what happened to a lot of our friends. They didn't want to associate with us anymore. And we have tried to create our own solidarity groups actually within Mumbai. We've met some journalists, some people who have been at it for years and years. So we do have some comrades who are like very, very old. But apart from that, globally, I don't think so. We have any.
Yeah, no, not globally. I feel like there are some groups around India also, but
Hmm.
Even
the
they are oppressed like really badly. Like you must have heard about the Indian people in solidarity with Palestine. They've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
active in India for like more than 14, 15 years now, doing on ground work.
Hmm.
And recently, they have been trampled upon so badly that they have had to stop their work for the first time in 15 years. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think also nationally, a lot of the groups who are meant to protect human rights, etc., they've I found them not to be very helpful either, because oftentimes it's a um, mismatch in politics and what we believe in. So they may find it too extreme or too radical or whatever, and a lot of them are more people who want to consider both sides and weigh it out, and so there comes a very weird hesitation where we found them not to be as helpful in our case.
Right, right. Regarding solidarity, if I may, since this is why we started this conversation to build international solidarity and promote your voices. Do you have a message for people in the global north, rich countries that could help you with your cause and build an international platform against capital, because capital is global, therefore resistance should be global. Do you have a message for us?
Um, I think a lot of European countries and countries in the West are very complicit. So I mean, I do feel like white people and other people from imperial states do have that responsibility. Not to say that they're directly causing something, but there is a responsibility there, and it would be nice if more to see more of more people from imperial states and the imperial core speak out, because that's where so much of the complicity and the funding is coming from. So I think I would really like to see that, and not to say that we are anybody to sort of give any messages to anybody or to even sort of have a say in a way, but it would be nice to see that, because they hold so much power. There is a little greater capacity to speak out, to protest, to do other things in other countries, as compared to in India. So whereas people, we've noticed, even some people we've talked to, it can be very easy to get comfortable and to protect your own peace and mental health. I don't buy into that crap. I think it's very harmful and capitalistic.
Exactly.
And a lot of people can buy into that and only connect with politics when they are feeling like it. So I think it would be nice to hopefully see that change sometime soon.
I just want, I think I want the global audience to sort of, get access to Shrishti's works. So I guess, Shrishti, do you publish, are your written publications available somewhere for people to like sort of get access to it? Then we
um
can post them in the description
I
box, right?
think I can compile it in a link tree. I was considering doing that, or else they're in different spaces.
Hmm.
So I think I can do that. I do have my own newsletter, but I'm not active on it. But for example, I've written a piece for The Wire. I've written for Azadasa. That's something I can definitely compile and put in there. We are also writing a piece currently that will hopefully come out soon. So I can all have that in one place. So I can share a link tree with you if that would work.
We can, for people to watch your Insta or some page that is like usually not the unsuspended account, either of your accounts, because it's very, we also have to keep up with the, the new accounts that are coming up if suspension becomes the norm, so you'll have to still get access to some kind of space.
I
So
think we can send both our accounts and any other links that would be
Relevant.
helpful to add.
Prashant or Shrishti, either of you or both of you, could you like give your last remarks on, this Palestine issue and the fact that, supporting Palestine is well within the international law? Could you sort of run the global audience to the International Court of Justice
Prashant.
or the relevant portions that help act or empower activists to sort of, make this case sort of normal?
I think I would just say to I mean, my only takeaway or any closing remarks would be to recognize our own complicity. We also care a lot about the BDS movement, and that's also very. It's one of the most accessible, actionable steps that you can take out of everything. So I think to also recognize our own complicity, whether that's our state's complicity or maybe just products we are buying that maybe directly or indirectly funding the genocide. and finding ways that we can help, because we've realized along the way that there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you can and I think the most important thing right now is materially supporting Palestinians, supporting their fundraisers. We talk to 15 to 20 families regularly, and all of them have said like the more pressing matter is perhaps maybe not even getting on a flotilla, but more important is that they have uh, their current needs met, which is through fundraisers and through material support. I think those are some things I would like to mention. I think that are important, that I hope that more of us can do, and support other people in whatever little attempts that they are making to do those things. Because I mean, unfortunately, it is really rough out there, and pro-Palestine separation has been a theme globally, and it's following similar me as well. Like doxing is one of the tools that is used even in the West. I've read some accounts where doxing has been used against pro-Palestine voices. So to support people who are doing whatever little that they can do, and to find ways to do something ourselves.
And we're also working within the framework of the international law, as you mentioned. A lot of our governments in the states may try to deem it as illegal or terrorist activity, which the UK government had done recently. And
With
even
Palestine
with
action.
Palestine Action and in India as well, a lot of us get called anti-nationals and terrorists for supporting Palestine. But I think this is a pattern that we need to recognize, that this is a global pattern of suppressing
Mm.
pro-Palestine voices, and that is exactly the reason why we need to come together globally and create a solidarity movement that is fighting for the liberation of Palestine.
Yes. Thank you both. And for the global audience, just to close the interview with our amazing and fearless social media activists, Shrishti and Prashant, please do support the boycott, divest, sanctions, the BDS movement, and stay informed about the Palestinian about the genocide happening in Palestine. And what Israel is doing is nothing new. This is a structural issue in the sense it has been going on since Nakba, since but even before that, the Balfour Agreement in 1917, and then the Nakba in 48, and then the Naksa, and so on and so forth. And it is quite well established that what Israel is doing in Palestine is well within the framework of the Genocide Convention, and they have been committing a genocide. So please stop being dumb in this day and age, and support those people who are innocent people who are unnecessarily being killed, and activists like Shrishti, Prashant, and all the activists across the globe who are fighting for the freedom of fighting for the freedom and the liberation of everybody, the Palestinians and also the Indian citizens, who are sitting in fear against authoritarian Hindutva. So these capitalism is a global phenomenon, and it's important to keep ourselves informed about the far right and the genocidal capitalists operating their own thing together, hand in hand, and it's important to come together and resist it. So, with that, I would like to close today's episode and stay tuned for more.